All right, so I've gone ahead and I've deleted all the balls here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in another pawn here. Now, the reason why we're going to do this is going to become clear in a moment here. But what we're going to do is we're going to call this a spawner. Okay, so we're just going to call this the spawner. And what I'm actually going to do is give it a number here because when you're rapid prototyping, you might want to have different kinds of spawners, etc. So we're just going to try this one with spawner 00 first, and we might make another one. Now, what we do need to add in is we are going to add in a cube, okay? And that cube is just going to be, well, basically the cube right there. Now let's add in a blueprint here, and what we're going to say is this is spawner 00 blueprint, and we're going to go ahead and just create that blueprint here, and we're going to compile and save it right away. Okay, just want to make sure that everything works here and that spawner does work here. And again, for whatever reason, if we zoom out here, this cube has been placed at a different location. Okay, so let's go ahead and it looks like there's a ball here for some reason. And there's this default root scene. And then I'm just going to actually delete that here. And then I'm going to set the cube to 0, 0, and 0. Okay, so that way we know that it is exactly 0, 0, 0. And if we, for example, go to the top perspective and zoom out a bit, we know that the cube here, you know, is a well, it's basically, if we move it up here, we can spawn it somewhere. So let's just go ahead. Let's take a look at the perspective again, and there we go. So we now have a cube, and well, right now it doesn't do anything. Okay, so we can kind of hit the spawner, but it doesn't really do anything. So let's go ahead and let's go and spawn the items from, or spawn some of these balls from this square or this cube right there. So let's take a look at how we can spawn this or spawn a bunch of these ball blueprints with the cube. So let's double click on this here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding our every event tick here. And we can actually do event begin play, but every tick will show you a couple things that, a couple concepts that I really like to talk about a lot. And it shows you how to add in some other items as well. So for instance, let's do spawn actor from class, actor from class. Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so what actor are we going to spawn? We can literally spawn anything, but let's spawn the ball blueprint. Okay, so let's spawn the ball blueprint here, and if we compile this, watch what happens. It gives you a huge error, and then let's just take a look at this error. It says the current value of the spawn transform pin is invalid. Okay, it means that this spawn has to be, and what we're going to do is we're just going to get actor transform. Okay, so what this means is that the spawn transform needs something to be put into. What are we going to put into? The actor transform. Which actor transform? The self actor transform. All right, so the second thing that we need to do is let's just put the default collision handles here. Let's compile this to see if it all works, save everything, and let's hop back in here. Okay, all right, now what? Nothing. So anticlimactic. Well, let's take a look at this collision handle override. So what we're going to do is we're going to go always spawn, ignore collisions. Now, what does that mean? Well, the collision handling override, if you think about this, what it means is that the box that we're spawning has collisions enabled. And imagine if you had a box and you were spawning basketballs from it, and the basketball spawned in the middle of the box. Well, you would spawn a basketball and then it would collide with the box. So what this is saying is that it ignores the collision on the spawn. Now this is something that's set up in Unreal specifically, and if you were to code an engine from scratch, you'd have to actually add it in there. So let's go ahead and let's kind of go ahead and push play here, and let's take a look. Well, look at that. Okay, that's actually kind of interesting, but whoa! And this is why we rapid prototype too. It's basically created a fountain of balls. Now, I also want you to take a look at this actor count here. So this is the actor count, and this actually is something that's really important with game development. So I'm going to take a couple seconds to explain it because it's something that's really important and has had a lot of issues. Well, I've had a lot of issues with it over the years. So what is that thing? So the actor count is how many actors there are in the scene. Now, you generally want the least amount of actors in your scene. Even if you're making a AAA game, you're going to have the least amount of actors that you can possibly have in your scene, because every actor that you spawn, it creates a little or takes up a little bit of memory. And that's important because you only have so much memory. Even on the amazing smartphones of today, you only have so much memory. So you have to keep that down. Now, if we look at this here, technically the game and the computers can handle this, but in the past, and to a certain extent today, if you were to create this many actors, it might lag the game. And what if you create too many actors, it will either lag the game below 60 frames per second, because the more actors you spawn, the more memory it takes up, and thus the computer can't calculate to 60 frames a second. If you're making a multiplayer game, all of these actors have to be created, from a multiplayer's point of view. And if you're working with servers, that creates time, or server costs as well, and that's also not good. So what that means is that this, since it's spawning every tick, it's spawning X many seconds. And it's spawning all the time, and you generally don't want that. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to always make sure that your actor count is as little as possible. So let's hop back into the blueprint here, okay? So now this is looking pretty good, but we need to set this as a delay timer here. So, or we have to set it as a timer. So what we want to do is say every blank seconds, we're going to go ahead and do that, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to add in a delay. Okay, so the delay is going to be a certain amount of seconds here, and on completed, we're going to spawn the actor from Blueprint. Now the duration is 2.2 seconds, so let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and play it here. Okay, and so as you can see, it's being shot up here, and there's a couple of different problems, right? First of all, you can kind of see that the balls there, they're being set up every 2 seconds, and we have to do something about that. But the point is that it does work. So let's hop back in here and let's drag this out here. We're going to go promote to variable, and this new variable is going to be, we'll call it spawner. We'll call it spawner time. Okay. In order to make this variable work here, we need to add or compile it first. And let's just say every 1 second. Now, one of the things I like to show beginning game developers is to try the 1 second first, because you'll be surprised on how fast 1 second is. Now, as you can see, things are being just basically shot up, and then they kind of come back down. Now, there's a lot that needs to be done here, but essentially we have created a spawner that does spawn this ball blueprint here, and that's pretty much all that we needed to do. It's pretty simple, and that's pretty much it. Now, one thing I'm just gonna just do one last thing to clarify here. Oftentimes, when we're referencing the self actor, you can drag this out and just push self, and you're in this case we have get reference to self. This is a little bit more, it's a little bit more solid, because generally when you have these kind of boxes here, it's best to fill them up with something. You don't always have to do it, but remember this duration here. If I just kill this, you could technically set it in here, but if you want to use the spawner time multiple times, then it's best you add in a variable here. So that's why I do that here. And if you really want to, it seems a bit redundant, but I generally find over the years that if you add in just sometimes this level of redundancy, it will make your game a little bit stronger, because sometimes, what works on the page and what works in theory just doesn't work when you actually get there. So like you're building a game, you're, let's say, 90% done, and then all of a sudden something doesn't work and you have no idea why. And oftentimes it's these redundancies that kind of show you, or that kind of come back to bite you. And so that's one thing that you can do. All right, see you in the next tutorial.